the biggest propaganda war was the Reformation.
Yeah, you had the printing press.
Printing press came out, and
you
it
had
was
them printing tracts for the first time. The Protestants like to say that the what did you just do?
No, don't worry about it. It's all good.
That the printing press allowed them to print Bibles in the vernacular for the first time. That's stupid. That was done.
No, they got to print Martin Luther's propaganda,
right?
Because the millions.
There's already 36 versions of the Bible in German being printed by the time Luther came around anyways. So
yeah.
That's all.
If it wasn't for the printing press, the Protestant Reformation would have never happened. They would have been able to stem that. They would have burned him at the stake, and that would have been a wrap, just like they did a million times before that, maybe not a million, but like it's not like Luther was the first one. He was just the first one and had everything work in his favor because he got the right powerful people behind him to say, hey, let's loot the churches, let's go and rob all the monasteries and all, and he had powerful people behind him to back him. And they had the printing press, and they were able to mail out these leaflets and telling everybody how corrupt the church was. And they were able to make these things saying the Pope in Rome was the Antichrist. What's crazy is how much talk of the Antichrist comes at the Reformation, like that the Pope is the seat of the Antichrist. It's wild.
Well, and you had sects like the Anabaptists legitimately thinking it was the end of the world and stuff. Yeah. I mean, so the Reformation happened because of the political and social upheavals.
Yeah.
Of the time. It wasn't the other way around.
Yeah, there was all these political upheavals happening already, you're saying, right?
Yes.
So and then Luther comes, and plus I just think technology. I'm honestly amazed that we made it as long as we did as a country once the automobile was invented. Right? Because that changed everything. It's such a big piece of technology. It allows you now, it made the world so small. Like you could go, like before, if you wanted to go from New York to California, before even the train, you had to freaking walk the Oregon Trail. Like that would take a year.
It changed the way we built our communities. It changed the way we interacted with each other, the way we did business, everything.
There's a great documentary on New York on Amazon Prime, and it shows the progression of New York from the 1600s till 9/11. So the documentary is like 20 years old, but it shows from 16 and when you had the Dutch coming and they land in New York, and it's in the 1600s, and it shows the progression of New York City and New York State over the course of 400 years. And it's crazy how similar it stays until the automobile is invented. Like even with trains and stuff, the outer boroughs, like when you really understand, like Queens was farmland, Brooklyn was farmland until the automobile is invented. Now it's like building on top of building. You don't have 6 inches of space. And Robert Moses comes in and literally kicks everybody out of their houses, pulls eminent domain, and builds these highways all over New York, these beautiful neighborhoods in the Bronx, all just thrown up. And he builds all these ghetto project buildings. Like he just starts building. So he wants to get the riffraff out of the nice areas, and he just starts building these, these complexes and their projects. And he just, affordable housing.
It was either yesterday or the day before. Hope and I were watching Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
And the episode was about 2 toddlers who were kidnapped in New York. And they're describing the projects that these families live in, and how it's 10 high-rise, 14-story high-rise towers, all more or less all in this area. And I mean, I live in a town of 1,500 people. I grew up in bigger cities, but right now there's, I live in a town of 1,500 people.
Yeah.
There is that many people in one of these 10 high-rise towers. Like, I just can't even imagine that.
Yeah, like Michael, he who shall not be named, Michael Jones.
I thought you were talking about Lofton.
I got to be honest. I feel like I'll
Oh
withhold.
gosh.
I'll withhold. I think he's
Remember
irrelevant.
radio.
I just think
Oh,
he's irrelevant.
yeah. I thought you were going
I
to say
just think he's
something
irrelevant. Like it's not worth
about
talking about him. He's irrelevant.
I thought you were going to say something about E. Michael Jones and his favorite people. And I'm
No,
thinking,
so
oh, radio.
so EMJ wrote that book Barren Metal, and it's like it's showing how like the architecture really changed everything. You know, like making people disconnected from their environment, putting them in these high-rise buildings,
Mm-hmm.
disconnects you from your community in a way where you don't care about your community, which is why like littering happens and you don't feel a connection to the place you live anymore when you're in these high-rise buildings. And it was intentional, and it was really meant to break up these Catholic ghettos where you had these really beautiful communities where aunts and uncles and grandparents, like the idea of the nuclear family is very new. You
Yeah.
didn't have nuclear families before. You had families.
The nuclear family really is like a modern American invention.
And you hear about it all the time. Everyone's like, they're trying to destroy the nuclear family. They destroyed the nuclear family when they broke these communities up. You would have a parish, and you would have families living all around that parish, and you were all in walking distance to the parish, and you had your grandparents and your great grandparents living in the same home as you lived in a 5-family home, 4-family home, and everyone knew everyone. You would play with your cousins all the time. How many kids see their cousins now? It's crazy. You don't see your family anymore. I mean, my family, I'm in such a unique position because my uncle owns the company I work for, right? And all my brothers work for that company. It's the only
And
reason my
that
family
is
is
what we
so
call
tight.
nepotism.
Nepotism. It's called mob ties. So it's like all my brothers are able to work at the same company, right? So we all live in the same town basically. So I see my family's very unique because of that. Like I am very close with all my brothers and sisters because we all live locally, except for my sister that's going to Kentucky to be a passionist nun. My other sister is doing something else. But like for the most part, me and all my brothers are very close. We see each other every single day at work. I mean, how often do you see your brother?
Maybe 6 times a year.
I
Now
mean, it has to be an event.
that is that's ever since we moved up, out of the cities. But otherwise, like my family was pretty similar to yours, to where, for all your semi major holidays throughout the year, you would get 50 or 60 of us together.
Yeah.
From my mom's side, and most of us all lived in the same suburb of
50 or
St. Paul.
60 is my mom just having her kids to her house for dinner, right?
Right.
Because there's 9 of us, where almost all of us are married. So that makes it 20. And all of us have a handful of kids. I mean, it's 50 people going to my mom's house for dinner on a Sunday. It's like my poor mother. That woman, she has to make like when
You
I
need the
tell,
mob ties just to feed everyone.
dude, you have no idea how much sauce my mom has to make. She makes a pot of sauce.
You mean gravy?
No, it's sauce. We don't say gravy.
Kennedy, it's gravy, right, Kennedy?
What do we say? Kennedy says sauce too. He's a proper Italian, even though he pretends he's not.
Oh, he's Canadian.
With that last name Hall. He changed his name. His name's not Kennedy Hall. It's like Pasquale. Pasquale.
Pasquale.
Pasquale Savarici. There's no way his name is Kennedy Hall. He's a guinea. But yeah, like my mom has one of those like those giant pots that the witches used to throw children in. Like what is that fairy tale with the candy house?
Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel and Gretel. Yeah, that's what she makes sauce in. Yeah, it is. It's very unique. It's very beautiful. It's a very unique situation my family has, and we're all able to stay close. And it's like there was one time my grandfather was talking to my mom, and he was like, "Yeah, well, if God's real, how come he took care of me so much and gave me so much money and not you?" And my mom goes, "Well, maybe God blessed you to take care of the rest of us. Did you ever think that? Like God, the sun shines on the good and the bad, but like by my grandfather starting that company, he was able to keep his entire family together. Like even my uncle is like a legit patriarch, right? Like he is the patriarch of the family. So he's the only boy. He has like 7 sisters. He's the only boy. So my grandfather just kept going until he had a boy. He's the baby. And like, he just kept going until he finally had his boy. Now, my grandfather passed on. My uncle is the patriarch of the family. Like he takes care of his sisters and her kid and all their kids. Pasquale. So it's like when you have a good patriarch, then the family stays together. If something ever happened to my uncle, I'd never see my aunts ever again. And like if I don't see them for a while, all I got to do is say something to my uncle. I'll be like, "Yo, I miss my family. You got to have a party. Let's go." And I guilt him right into it.
Yeah.
Just tell him he's cheap. Don't be cheap. Throw a party, bro. Let's go. He can't stand being called cheap.
New York Italian, there's no way you can let that one go, right?
Nothing makes him angrier than calling him cheap. But tell him he's cheap, he throws a party right away.